You are standing there. Someone just asked you a painfully simple question, and your mind goes completely blank. You force a smile, panicking internally, feeling incredibly slow. But what if I told you that this exact moment of silence is not a sign of social anxiety? Clinical data from neuroscientists shows that this brain freeze is actually the ultimate biological proof of a highly associative, highly intelligent brain. Today, we are going to break down the exact neuroscience of why smart people crash in conversations. You know the exact feeling. You are at a networking event or standing by the coffee machine at work. Someone walks up and asks a devastatingly simple question like, "What did you do this weekend?" Instantly, the connection between your brain and your mouth is severed. Your mind, which is usually a chaotic storm of brilliant ideas, goes utterly, horrifyingly blank. You are a deer in the headlights. You force a polite smile, you nod, and you say something painfully generic. As you walk away, the internal monologue begins. You beat yourself up. You ask yourself, why am I so bad at this? Why am I so slow? Why do I always freeze? Society has conditioned us to believe that rapid-fire verbal fluency is the ultimate marker of intelligence and charisma. But modern neuroscience is actively dismantling this lie. If you frequently experience this verbal paralysis, you are not stupid. You are not lacking social calibration. The clinical truth is much more fascinating. Your brain did not freeze because it had nothing to say. It froze because it had too much to say. In the span of 1.5 seconds, your brain opened 50 different background processes. It cross-referenced every possible answer, and just like a high-performance computer, overloaded with data, it initiated an emergency override and crashed. To understand why you freeze, we have to look inside the microscopic architecture of your cognition. Neurologists and cognitive behavioral researchers divide human thinking into two distinct biological categories. There is linear thinking, and there is associative thinking. The vast majority of the population operates on a linear cognitive framework. When you ask a linear thinker a question, their brain moves smoothly from point A to point B. If you ask them about their weekend, they simply open a chronological file in their memory. They will tell you they mowed the lawn, they watched a movie, and they went to sleep. It is simple, efficient, and requires very little metabolic energy. There's no friction in their mind. But your brain does not work that way. Highly intelligent and deeply introspective individuals possess what neuroscientists call a highly associative neural network. Your brain is not a straight line. It is a complex, hyperactive spiderweb of interconnected memories, theories, and emotional data. When a question is posed to you, your brain does not just pull up one single file. It cross-references absolutely everything you have ever experienced. Let us go back to that agonizing moment. Someone looks at you and asks, "How was your weekend?" Instantly, your associative brain ignites. In a fraction of a second, your neural pathways light up like a sprawling city grid. Your brain retrieves the documentary you watched about quantum mechanics. Simultaneously, it cross-references that information with a childhood memory of staring at the stars. Then, your prefrontal cortex jumps in to analyze the immediate physical and social environment. It calculates their emotional intelligence and their patience level. Your brain starts asking a series of rapid-fire internal questions. Do they actually care about what I am going to say? Will they even understand this complex concept? Is this topic way too heavy for a casual Tuesday morning conversation? In the span of 1.5 seconds, your brain has forcefully opened 50 different cognitive browser tabs. You are evaluating social hierarchy, reading tiny micro-expressions on their face, and trying to formulate the perfectly calibrated response that will not make you seem too weird. And just like a high-performance supercomputer that is suddenly overloaded with massive amounts of simultaneous background processes, your system crashes. Cognitive psychologists refer to this exact neurological phenomenon as analysis paralysis. The cognitive load simply becomes too heavy to bear. You are standing there in complete silence, feeling like you are failing a basic human interaction. The world expects you to just say something normal, but you physically cannot. But the scientific truth is, your silence is not a void of intelligence. It is a catastrophic traffic jam of brilliant, complex ideas trying to exit through a very narrow verbal doorway at the exact same time. You do not lack words, you are literally drowning in them. The very biological structure of your high intelligence is what temporarily paralyzed you. Your brain was doing too much too fast, and the freeze was the only way your nervous system could stop a complete systemic meltdown. This brings us to the agonizing, everyday ritual of small talk. Have you ever stopped to wonder why you can sit down and passionately debate philosophy, business strategy, or the deeper meaning of a film for 3 solid hours without missing a single beat? But a simple 5-minute conversation about the weather or what someone ate for lunch makes you want to crawl completely out of your own skin. The answer is not that you are an antisocial introvert. The answer lies directly in your neurochemistry, specifically within your dopamine reward pathway. Brain mapping studies and clinical behavioral research reveal a fascinating truth about highly intelligent brains. They require a significantly higher threshold of novelty and complexity to trigger a dopamine release. You have to remember that dopamine is not just the pleasure chemical, as pop psychology often claims. Neurologically speaking, dopamine is the chemical responsible for sustained focus and cognitive engagement. It is the fuel that keeps your prefrontal cortex online and actively processing external information. When someone traps you in the hallway and engages you in incredibly mundane, predictable small talk, your brain instantly scans the incoming data and recognizes it as biologically useless. There is no complex problem to solve here. There is no fascinating pattern to decode, no philosophical depth to explore, and absolutely no threat to neutralize. Your brain categorizes this conversation as cognitive junk food because highly associative brains consume a massive amount of metabolic energy just to operate at their baseline. They have a built-in defense mechanism to prevent energy waste. When faced with a conversation that offers zero intellectual return on investment, your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical, highly focused part of your brain, essentially goes into an aggressive sleep mode to conserve its metabolic resources. You are not being rude, and you are certainly not socially broken. Your brain is quite literally on a biological level refusing to waste its high-octane fuel on low-level data. It is pulling the plug on the connection because keeping it active drains too much energy for zero reward. You freeze because your internal operating system is actively trying to shut down an application that provides absolutely no cognitive value. Society constantly tells you that you should be able to effortlessly chat about absolutely nothing for 20 minutes straight. It makes you feel like an outcast when you cannot participate in this shallow exchange of words. But science tells you that your brain evolved to solve complex problems, to build systems, to understand the deep mechanics of the world around you. It was not designed to pretend that a conversation about weekend traffic is intellectually stimulating. You are not failing at small talk. Your advanced neurological hardware is simply rejecting it. But we must now address the darker, much more dangerous side of this psychological phenomenon. Up until this point, we have assumed that your mind goes blank purely because of cognitive data overload. But what if I told you that sometimes your brain does not freeze because it is processing too much information? Sometimes your brain freezes because it has successfully detected a predator in the room. In the complex realm of behavioral psychology and human social dynamics, communication is rarely just an innocent exchange of words. It is a psychological chessboard. There are specific individuals, often possessing highly narcissistic or manipulative traits, who instinctively use conversation as a weapon to establish dominance. They do not actually care about your answer. They use rapid fire questions, constant micro interruptions, and aggressively intense eye contact to intentionally destabilize your nervous system. When you are confronted by this specific type of predatory energy, your biological system reacts violently. Your brain completely bypasses the logical, highly intelligent prefrontal cortex and directly activates the amygdala. The amygdala is the primitive, ancient alarm bell located deep within your brain structure. It does not care about logic, and it does not care about your high intelligence. Its only job is to keep you alive. When these toxic individuals back you into a conversational corner, your body experiences what clinical neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack. In a fraction of a second, your bloodstream is flooded with a massive dosage of cortisol and adrenaline. Your evolutionary survival mechanism instantly takes over, giving your nervous system three distinct options to survive the perceived psychological attack. You can fight, you can flee, or you can freeze. In a modern social setting like a corporate boardroom or a crowded dinner party, you cannot physically punch the person in the face, and you cannot literally run out the front door to escape. So your biology aggressively chooses the third option. It chooses to freeze. This is the exact same biological mechanism that a prey animal uses to play dead when a deadly predator is standing directly over it. You go completely blank because your brain has forcefully shut down the language and logic centers to dedicate 100% of your metabolic resources to threat assessment and survival. You are standing there feeling humiliated because you cannot form a single coherent sentence, completely unaware that your body is fighting a silent biological war. This is the ultimate tragedy of the highly intelligent, empathetic brain. You think you are losing a debate or that you are just terrible at socializing under pressure. But the clinical reality is that they did not outsmart you. They did not possess a higher intellectual capacity. They simply recognized your empathetic nature and intentionally triggered your ancient survival instincts to make you look weak and compliant. Your silence in these specific moments is not a lack of intelligence. It is a highly calibrated biological alarm system warning you that the person standing in front of you is not psychologically safe. So how exactly do we fix this catastrophic system failure? How do we stop the cognitive crash and take back complete control of the conversation? The answer is not trying to think faster. The instinctive biological reaction to a sudden brain freeze is sheer panic. You try to force words out of your mouth to fill the agonizing silence because society has conditioned you to believe that speed equals competence. But in the world of high-stakes psychological negotiation and elite leadership, speed is actually a biological indicator of anxiety. True social power operates on a completely different biological frequency. Rushing to answer communicates submission. Taking your time communicates absolute authority. When you feel that terrifying freeze coming, when you sense your prefrontal cortex shutting down and your amygdala taking over, you must deploy a tool that behavioral experts call the tactical pause. This is not just a clever communication trick. It is a physiological reset button for your entire nervous system. The very next time your mind goes blank, I want you to do the exact opposite of what your anxiety is screaming at you to do. Do not look away. Do not stare at the floor. Hold direct, unwavering eye contact with the person who just spoke. Take a slow, deliberate breath in and count to 3 full seconds in your head. 1, 2, 3. This 3-second gap accomplishes 2 absolutely critical physiological and psychological objectives. Biologically, that slow breath immediately lowers your circulating cortisol levels. It sends a direct chemical signal to your ancient amygdala that you are not under physical attack, which instantly brings your highly intelligent prefrontal cortex back online. Psychologically, that heavy silent shifts the immense social pressure completely back onto the other person. You are no longer the prey caught in a trap. You have just become the apex predator of the conversation simply by refusing to be rushed. If the neurological freeze is particularly severe and those 3 seconds are not quite enough to fully reboot your complex associative network, you deploy step 2 of the protocol. You use a bridge phrase. A bridge phrase is a strategic sequence of words meticulously designed to buy your brain time without sounding lost, intimidated, or confused. You do not stammer. You look them directly in the eyes and you calmly say, "That is a fascinating perspective. Let me take a moment to think about how to answer that accurately." Or you can say, "There are a few different ways to unpack that question. What exactly do you mean by that specific point? Do you see what just happened in that exchange?" You completely bypass the biological system crash. You successfully rebooted your associative brain by giving it a clear single task to focus on instead of 50 background processes. And most importantly, you forcefully reversed the spotlight effect. You took the massive cognitive load off of your own shoulders and handed it right back to them. You are no longer the deer frozen in the headlights. You have reclaimed the dominant frame of the interaction, and you did it all by simply choosing to move slower than the rest of the room. Society loves the loud, the fast, and the highly reactive. Modern culture has conditioned us to believe that the person who speaks the quickest is the smartest person in the room. But clinical data proves the exact opposite. History is not shaped by the loudest voices. It is shaped by the quiet, the calculating, and the deeply analytical minds. If your brain goes completely blank in a social interaction, you need to stop apologizing for it. You must stop feeling embarrassed for possessing a neurological architecture that operates at a depth most people simply cannot comprehend. Your silence in a conversation is not a biological weakness. It is a clinical necessity. It is the required space where highly complex ideas are carefully formed, where hidden social threats are analyzed, and where real intelligence is structured. The very next time you feel the panic of a brain freeze, remember the neuroscience we discussed today. Do not panic. Take a deep breath. Look them directly in the eyes and let them wait for the brilliance that is about to come out. If this psychological breakdown finally explained something you have been fighting your entire life, hit the like button right now so the algorithm knows this information is valuable. Subscribe to the channel to keep mastering the hidden behavioral psychology of your own mind. I will see you in the